so we're
Okay.
ready to start.
All right.
She's having technical issues with her computer, but we've got her on the phone. So,
I think it's
so
downloading now. All of the updates I never installed. I think now it thinks it's doing it. So
it's the
anyway,
perfect day
but
for it, right?
right. So,
All right. Well, thank you for joining us despite your technical issues. Can you tell us a little bit about your story? How did you
yeah.
start swimming?
So I started swimming. It was just kind of my town had a pool in the high school, and when I was about 10, I am not athletic in anything, so I had never really found a sport, but I knew how to swim. We'd always been around lakes, so my newest friend when we moved to Connecticut brought me to swim team tryouts, and I made it, which was weird, and then which I thought was odd, and then I just stayed with it, and it became quite a good social thing for me. So swimming itself, probably since I've swimming since little, but competitive swimming started at like 10 or 11. So, and always swimming in lakes because I've grown up around lakes. So that's been kind of always in the background, and never really thought much about it. But turns out it kind of gave me a good background.
Yeah, for sure. I mean yeah, for growing up around lakes, for sure. When did you
Yeah.
start pushing distances?
Um, well, my dad always had a rule that if you could swim across the lake, you didn't have to wear the life jacket. You could have just the cushion on the boat, And so we did a half mile, and it didn't really seem like pushing it at the time, but it was a half mile. And probably did that at age 10, 10 probably, once you realize how you didn't want to wear a life jacket on the boat.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that rule is not in effect anymore. That was just a Dave Spencer rule. That was not an actual rule. But I think that's what he had to do when he was young. So probably 10, did that. And I think I remember at some point around then doing like a 5,000 yard, 200 length swimathon for some team. So that was, and I remember that being a big deal and going around and collecting funds and stuff. So my first really long one was 10 miles. We had to swim in our town, or right next to our town, in Candlewood Lake in Connecticut. And all of us who lived there, basically always worked on the lake. All the New York City people came out and had communities in our town. And so we were the townies, and we always worked on Candlewood. So so there was this Red Cross ran this fundraiser swim, and so people just did it. They just did it. So the friends of mine did it one year, and then the next year they kind of asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, yeah, maybe. And then a friend of mine asked me, we would do it in pairs and just bring along like the cutest guys we knew to be the rowers. There really weren't kayaks back then, but canoers usually. And so I said, all right, I'll do it. And we didn't train. We just did it. And, my parents are like this whole thing was, they're not psycho parents at all. And so they were just sort of like, oh, interesting. Okay, cool. Let us know if you need a ride or whatever. And I my mother was more nervous than that, but that's the impression I had, was that no one particularly thought it was a big deal. So I was like, all right, it's not a big deal. So we did 10 miles, and I think my mom's been going through purging every piece of whatever she's got in her house right now. So she said, did it in 85, 86, 87. So I was, I think, maybe after junior year of high school, after junior year, senior year, and then a couple more years, I did
Wow.
the 10-mile swim. And like I said, it really wasn't, it seems odd to say, but it really wasn't a big deal. My sister did some of it, like, it was in such a familiar body of water, and we took our time. Our rowers were, God knows what they were doing. They were like high school and college boys. So they were like, half the time off doing slow. We're like, where are they? You know, half the time they're off doing like slalom, and having beer. We just paid them in sandwiches, and I don't know what they were. Yeah, they were just like playing around, and it was just a fun thing to do, and it just seemed like, all right, you know, kind of do it, and that was fun. Yeah, we totally weren't racing, but it was the first time I ever really tried to do anything like long with swimming, or different than the pool. So, and I really didn't. It laid the groundwork, but it definitely wasn't like, oh, I'm inspired, I want to win, or want to do this. So
was it like an out and back, or was it like a?
No, it was length. So
Okay.
it started at one town and ended in another, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it started in Sherman and ended in Danbury. I know it ended in Danbury. So, and that was the first time I saw milfoil, the end. And I was so nearsighted, I couldn't see a thing. And the guys in the boat were like, oh, we're almost there. I'm like, okay, really cool. And then, no, we're not almost there. So I couldn't see a thing. I just remember I could not see a thing. So yeah, so that was sort of where it started. And then I went to college, and, you know, it was kind of like a medium swimmer, definitely nothing amazing. I never swam sub, I never did any of that stuff, but it was nice social. It was great for me. I was such an introvert. It was, for me, really good socially, to be part of a team and stuff like that. So, but well, the story is that I came back to open water. Laying the groundwork was that I did those things and kind of and knew that I could do it. And then I got to college, had a pretty severe head injury during orientation.
During orientation?
Yes, during freshman orientation. So you should have seen me dropping my kids off. And not that it had anything to do with, I was riding a bike, so it wasn't anything that you could prevent, really, but riding a bike hit by a car. So,
oh man,
so I intended to swim at college. I tried my first year. I did not go well, and I was leaving the sport forever. I was never going to be on a pool deck. I was never going back to the pool ever again. Never
heard that one before.
Yeah, exactly. We the end of that, and then I got back home in the summer, obviously, and then the swimming was still happening in Kent. I was like, oh, all right, well, maybe I'll just do the 5 mile, whatever. Yeah, it didn't train. You know, so I sort of kind of came back and found that I could still enjoy the motion of it. So I ended coming back, obviously, and finding something about the open water and maybe pushing it, seeing if I could push it a little farther than I could before, that type of thing. And I always had anxiety, so racing for me was very stressful. And so also the aspect of, okay, there's no start involved. You could race, but it was sort of like after a while you could race. You didn't have to rely on your instinct and go split second. I could never really quite do that instinctive racing, like quick like that. So even before head injury, I was not necessarily the quickest, the fast twitch muscles. And so I came back to it and found kind of a home there. And then I moved here, and I was still really not swimming much. And I moved here.
Where's here?
So Massachusetts.
Okay.
And my husband and we long distance dated for a while from Connecticut to Mass, and then I moved here to Massachusetts and to be with him, and then got engaged and all that. And I somehow found myself at Walden Pond, which is where everyone finds themselves now, but back then it was sort of a new thing. And I know, I signed up for the Boston Light. That's what I did. Oh, I've swum 10 miles. I can totally swim. I have no idea what I'm doing because I'm not a saltwater, like lakes, everything. So I'm like, oh, I don't know, whatever. I've done 10 miles a bunch of times. I can totally do this. So I did. I signed up for the Boston Light Swim with no business doing so. And I ended up going to Walden sometimes and doing some training there. And I was working at a health club. And so I had some strength. And so I just went on, of course, the day I did the Boston Light Swim, it was the most beautiful day ever. And it was like beautiful. I'm sure a course record was set that day. I don't know. The conditions were amazing. And so then I was hooked because I thought I could do all this. I was like,
Right.
see, it went just like transferred just like that. And it only took me, 3 hours. It was quick. It was quicker than I ever thought. And it was so much fun and so beautiful. And it wasn't a wide open ocean like I thought it would be. It's just really, the Boston Light course is so, again, I had no idea what I was doing. So it's so beautiful. You just go island to island and bridge. There's not a bridge anymore, but there was a bridge, and it was just really cool. And I loved everything about it. And so you could chase someone. You weren't really racing, but you could chase someone, and you had people nearby, but not too nearby. And that feeling of finishing that was just incredible. And yeah, so then I just kept doing that one. And this was 1 milers around here. And back then, it wasn't what it is now. It was like, call me the week before. I remember getting calls the day before. Oh, your boat captain had a family emergency. Like people were bailing. I'd get there in the morning and not know if I had a boat. I'd get there like so casual. It was clearly not the same order. It was like two cops from, I don't remember who, but they would go to the bars the night before and find people with boats. I'll make on Plato, you want to come? And they were like, all right, cool. So they come dragging these guys in Southie from the bars and bring them in. Yeah, it was very different. And I probably would have been much more scared off had it been like it is now, where you have to actually cruise. I don't know, you have to work much harder to get in. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I'm not sure I would have been able to manage. It would have been like, oh, I don't know, I'm not worthy. Like, I don't think and I never really thought about it because it was so casual. Mm-hmm. And I met people like Fred Knight way, way back and on the shores of Walden. And he was one of the first people who actually measured things accurately. So he's a scientist and measured everything accurately, and that's when the Boston Light Swim started to be called 8 miles instead of 10 miles. Oh. I have old T-shirts that say 10 miles. So, but I know it's not. So yeah. So the Boston Light I think I've done that 6 times maybe or something. Mm-hmm. And had all sorts of results from that. But I've met some pretty incredible. That dinner the night before has been really an amazing thing. You meet all the most incredible people, and everyone's backgrounds are so fascinating. Yeah. And so it's just really, that event probably for me even more than Candlewood. Like even more than the Lake Swim. The Lake Swim was cool, but But in my adult life, my post brain injury life, my post everything life, it was probably the Light Swim that kind of showed me I could maybe do this. Right. Can you describe, so when the completing of the swim, so the first time you did a 10-mile swim as a teenager compared to this post brain injury, was there, how was that for you? Like, how would you describe the difference in completing a marathon swim? That's an interesting question. I think, when I was a teenager, I think we finished and it was like through these weeds and got out, and our boaters made us a wreath to put on our heads, and it was like, oh, neat, this is fun. And like, all right, we're going to a concert. Okay, let's do it's just part of your teenage life. I got a weird sunburn. And then later, I think it became, I definitely swim now with so much more gratitude. I mean, I really took for granted, and I think we all do. I mean, I watch my kids who are 20 and 22, and I'm like, you take for granted what your body can do And before my head injury, I've had, I know enough to know that I had no connection. I think one doctor put it really well, like, you had no connection to your body before, like you were just, I mean, I banged into everything, I fell down all the time, like I was so just like a cut, basically, and I still kind of, basically no sense of your body. I really don't remember any feel for the water, like I don't remember any, like, there was nothing the water really gave me like it gives me now. So, but after the head injury, I have much more sense because I had to recover and I had to learn things again. Like, and then, luckily I didn't have to learn like walking, talking, but mine was mostly memory, and I lost some cognitive stuff. So it was reading and writing, the mental parts of those things that were the problem, not physical. Luckily, I did not have to relearn like how to physically do things.
Yeah.
So it was all very invisible. So anyway, but I'm much more understanding of what my body is doing now, and I'm much more grateful. So when I finished swims like the light swim back then, and I definitely have a sense of, even back then in my 20s, like having that wonder and having that, just like that gratefulness that I definitely didn't have as a teenager. I mean, that was, it was just like, oh, interesting. And then, but I mean, you certainly have the sense of, wow, there's a good chance I would not be doing this had things slightly gone differently. So, and once you have an occasion like that where you kind of you're forced to restart a lot of things, it changes everything. I mean, but also it's the interesting connection to the body is that I think it helps me, the compartmentalizing, like being able to kind of ignore some things that my body is telling me, but sensory wise, there's some sensory issues that I think open water swimming has. It's helped me because I can get through stuff physically and ignore it and compartmentalize and be like, okay, put that piece over there, and I can keep swimming. And so, and I haven't quite obviously figured out how to articulate it, but there's something to that. There's something to that, being able to notice. And yoga has taught me, I've done a lot of yoga, and that's taught me a lot of it, that notice what's going on in your body and being like, oh, okay, let's not panic. Let's think about that again in 5 minutes, and let's consider this again later. And so there are definitely some gifts I got from that head injury that stay with me and are definitely help me in things like endurance events. Because I think you trust, I don't know, you just, the minute by minute stuff is more natural. So once you've almost lost it. But yeah, there's more gratefulness every year.
Right. Right.
Certainly, yeah.
Can you tell us about the swim that you're most proud of?
I'm proud of a few of them for different ways. I think one of my hardest ones, and I was just reading somebody's blog post about this morning, so it's on my mind. One of the most proud ones was Lake Tahoe, mostly because it was really hard. It was really hard. And I didn't know how hard it was going to be, and I didn't understand altitude. I didn't know how I'd react to altitude. I'd never been anywhere altitude, so I just sort of was like, all right, I'll just go and do it. And yeah, so ignorance is bliss. So I threw up the whole time, and it was really, 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 really wanted to get out, and I was really cold, and I'm hardly ever cold, so I scared myself. I scared myself at that point. And that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever gotten through and finished.
Yeah. Did you swim overnight?
Yeah, I started
Yeah.
at sunset,
Yeah.
and which, yeah, and we're not sure. My husband still now, all these years later, still like, I don't know why anyone would start that. Like he's still stuttering about that, but I know there was I know there was a plan in place, so I just followed, whatever the
Yeah.
guy told me to do, and it was fine. I mean, it was, but yeah, it wasn't. We did this bizarre back route to get there, and where we like went over these cliffs, and so I didn't eat anything. It was like it was just a perfect storm.
Mm.
And yeah, like I said, I think the altitude definitely. I learned a lot, and but yeah, I was pretty proud of that. That was one where I really, like I said, I really, really wanted to get out, and basically the guy in the boat, Jamie, was like, "This is why you came.
Mm.
This is why you're here," and that was really profound for me. And I was just like, "You're right. Actually, this is why I'm here. And it's to get through this and finish it." And but yeah, I was just miserable.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, it was such a beautiful place too. It was so amazing. But anyway, so that's, I think, most proud because I really persevered on that one, and I think, yeah, for me that was big because I hadn't done anything that was like, I don't know. You get good weather, you get whatever, you get good conditions, and that one was like, okay, it wasn't good today. Really, the sun was out, but that was about it. It wasn't good conditions particularly. It was not, I didn't have a tailwind. I didn't have this, and this, and so
And
so
just
yeah. So
feeling
I think,
horrible the whole time doesn't help.
yeah, yeah, from the get go, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Tahoe's a tricky
So
one.
yeah.
Is there anything that you haven't finished?
Sure. Yeah, I have a lot of things I haven't finished, and I think one of the things that set me on this, the reason I'm probably still swimming now, was that 10 years ago I went to swim the English Channel, and I went, and my whole window was weathered. I got blown out.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to Dover. Parents came. It was like this big thing, and then I didn't get to swim. And so I was, devastated. It wasn't, of course, that could happen, but I was really upset. And so I grabbed a slot the next year because I was basically like grasping, trying to figure out what to do next. And I
Yeah.
grabbed a slot the next year, but in June, which is kind of stupid in retrospect. But yeah, it's freezing in June. I mean, it's like ridiculous. But I took a slot in June, and just to get it done, and jumped right on that, and tried to get right back in there. And I went over, and I was able to get in. And there was a day, Marcy McDonald did a crossing that day, but she was the only other one who was in. And so it was cold, and she was like, "Yeah, I don't think you should," basically she was like, "I don't think anyone other than me should, then she should have gone in." But
Mm.
but it was cold, and it wasn't that calm. But the upshot of it is, I think I had a panic attack. What I think now is that I had a panic attack. I got in, and I started to swim, and then I like threw up immediately, and I was so nervous, and I had to wait all day. It was like a weird thing where then but I basically, what it was is I had a panic attack, and I started swimming the wrong way and away from the boat, and it was broad daylight, swimming, away, and I don't know, I might have been in for like an hour. I don't even know. So, and for the first couple of years after that, I was like, yeah, it was the weather, and it might have been the weather. I mean, it wasn't great, but I think it really was. I think it was a panic. I think it was actual panic attack. So much was built up. There was way too much riding on it in my head.
Right.
No one
Right.
else was there. Obviously, no one cares. But for me, it was too much, and I shouldn't have rushed. I shouldn't have done. I went too emotional. I didn't do things the way I should have done.
Mm-hmm.
I was just determined to get it in there. So anyway, so that set me up for. Then I went to Memphis, I think a couple months later, and I did the length of Memphis Magog as a rebound.
Mm-hmm.
And so that made me feel better. So I was like, okay, all right, I can do this. And that was before Tahoe and before all those things. So basically, that was my first like super long. I had done 15 miles and I had done a lot of those, but before I tried the English Channel, but I hadn't done anything super long. That was my first super long thing, and then after that,
super long being like in the 20s. Is that what you're saying? Super long.
And so that kind of set me up and made me want to figure this out, and kind of left me wanting more. I'm not sure if I had done it my first time, and I think I could have done it my first time. I had trained right. I knew I was, and if I had done it my first time, I'm not sure that all the rest would have happened.
Yeah.
My best things have happened since then. So
yeah.
In terms of this stuff. So that was really a learning, and I think it made me, I'm a coach, I'm a parent, so I think anytime you have the discipline, I didn't finish, you asked if I didn't finish Lake Champlain several times because I didn't even start the crossing of Lake Champlain once because we got over there and I threw up on the boat, and the guy was like, "You are not getting off this boat." It was a couple times. Oh yeah, I've not finished a lot of things. That's how you learn. Because when you first start this, you're like, I'm going to try and put nutrition my way. Like I see all these people and they seem to know what they're doing, but I don't really like, whatever. So you try nutrition and that doesn't work. But you have to try it. That's what, like as a parent, like you have to watch your kids like, hey, I know that's not going to work, but you can try it.
Yep.
So I tried those different things and that was stupid. And, like I have some motion sickness issues from head injury stuff that I'm going to have. I'm going to throw up. I'm going to do it. I'm going to throw up and I'm going to have to just keep swimming, and that's just the way it's going to be. CBD oil has helped me a bit with that. I will say that for some reason has helped my motion sickness a good amount.
Interesting.
Not entirely erased it. I know, I don't know, and I can't do the bands and the this and the that. But so Excedrin migraine probably helps me more than anything.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like a migraine, actually. But anyway, but learning, definitely when you don't finish things, you learn way more than you do when you do. Because when you do finish things, like, a lot of things come together. The weather, is good enough. Everything is good enough. Your nutrition was good enough. Everything was good enough. But when you don't finish, you got to look at what was it in your power or not. And sometimes it isn't in your power. I mean, sometimes it has nothing to do with you. And you have to kind of come to terms with that. And then sometimes it was things that you should have done better, could have done better, and that you can fix for the next time. And so I feel like, anyone who succeeds all the time, isn't ready for that really big failure. Not failure, but for that really big non-finish that's coming. It's gonna happen. And I think, it definitely is. Those first few where you get thinking like you're invincible is that's where you're really set up for a fall, because then you're really devastated. Then you don't understand how things could have gone so wrong. So at least now, you just learn. You learn things and you try things in training, and then you still hate them, and it's like halfway through a swim last week, I was like, I don't want that anymore. And my husband's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I don't like that drink anymore. And he's like, well, this is what we have. I was like, I know, but I don't like it. He's like, why didn't you bring whatever? I was like, well, I didn't know I wasn't going to like it. So now, all these things like lists for next year, like, okay, bring a can of Coke, bring a can of, like, what are you going to, you got to bring everything just in case, because you're going to start hating something in the middle of the swim. So trial and error is definitely has been most helpful. And listening to other people helps too, but mostly because listening to other people helps a lot, just because you feel like, okay, I'm part of a community and they understand what I'm going through. I don't necessarily use like helpful tips from other people, I guess, but
Yeah.
but I'm sometimes a little too stubborn to do that. But I do think that we definitely learn. I mean, certainly, the internet has been such an amazing gift to open water swimming. Like having done it before the internet, there's no information whatsoever. So
Right.
now it's like you have a question, you're like, what bathing suit should I get? And you put it out there, and like 50 people
50,
respond.
right. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, this suit sucks. Like you just go through them and you're like, oh, well, this one's not good, and then this one's not good. And so, and yeah, So yeah, it's such a different thing now when you can just reach out and ask people. So
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what started on that part.
That's good. You covered some good tips for aspiring marathon swimmers. We are running out of time, unfortunately, but I was wondering if you had a favorite swim memory that you could share with us.
I think one of my favorite swims that I've done is Scar, and it was something I didn't expect to really like, because I was like, I do not want to get up every day. I was really scared because I didn't think I could do it mentally, and it was so otherworldly and beautiful there, and it was just a place I had never been, and that whole sense of I swim by myself a lot, almost all the time, and basically having like Doritos with it. Just Debbie and I are still joking about these Doritos, but having Doritos and like nuts on a dock with another woman after the end of Scar in the middle of the night, because we were waiting for our kayakers to find us, to come back and get us in the car, and just like having that sense of community. And like I said, I'm definitely a solo swimmer, but having that sense of community at Scar was really neat, and something I won't ever forget. And just the background to it, the smells and the sights of Arizona at that time, and having that as the backdrop to it was really, really good. And feeling like part of something, even though I was doing my own project. That was a really neat thing. So
Yeah.
that was really fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I recommend Scar for anybody who can make it happen.
I do have to say one more swim memory, though, was something like last week where I swam at my parents' house. My quarantine sort of swim but my parents are getting older, and they were certainly my first supporters, and but having them cheering for me on land was really cute, and like having my kids kayak for me is so amazing.
Yeah.
It's such a I don't really get emotional about my own swims. I cry when I watch other people's, but I do think that was such a remarkable thing to have my kids and my parents like be part of something. So even though it wasn't the thing I wanted to do this year, it was a really, really neat thing to have them, because I did Boston Light when I was pregnant with my son. So the fact that he is now kayaking for me, and I'm still doing these things all these years later. It's so cool. So,
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I'll get really special when he does the Boston Light, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. But
Right. Yeah.
hold out hope that he'll actually swim it outside of me someday, but we'll see.
Very cool. What marathon swimmer has inspired you?
I'd say, I was thinking about this morning because I thought you might ask this. I would say one of the people that's been probably the most really kind to me, and as I was learning, was Liz Fry. And she's just such a neat person. She was more than anything, she was super patient when I had all these stupid questions, and I was sort of just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And it was kind of fun because she started with the Candlewood swim as well, although she, I think, won it. Like she was probably already back home and had showered, but we did it for different reasons. But she started with that, and she just was a really cool. She's really understated about her accomplishments, and was very, like I said, very patient and very kind to me. And I valued that, because not everyone is like that. I mean,
yeah,
it's great, and the people are amazing, but it's not always amazing to try to get into a group. It's not it's not always amazing to try to take up something new. And like I said, the internet helps. But before the internet, it was really just like maybe you could email someone, but that was it. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say that Liz just being kind and encouraging and like remembering who I was, you know,
yeah.
a year later, I went into her and like said hi to my mom. And I, you know, it was just the nicest thing that she remembered who I was, I thought.
Yeah.
And just little things like that. So, and that's what I tell the high schoolers I coach. It's like, you know, when you're a senior in high school and you say nice things to the freshmen, they remember forever. It's like, and so it was that kind of dynamic where it's like, she said hi to me. And then you try to kind of pass that kindness on. So,
yep. It's so true.
That's cool. Yeah.
I'm glad you're coaching high school kids and passing that on. That's really good. Good.
It brings a lot. It brings a lot of things together for me. So I get to be inspired every day. They're inspiring teenagers, but I get to get inspired every day. So pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time today, Jennifer. It's been wonderful hearing your story.
I'm sorry you couldn't see my hair and everything, though.
I know, you brushed it. You could send us a picture.
I brushed it when I got out of the pool and everything. And I still can't get on. It's so bizarre. I restarted. So anyway, it'll probably connect as soon as I hang up with you.
I'm sure. Well, you can always join us any Tuesday. We're here. Next week, we're talking to Ching.
I was able to access it from Zoom, so I knew I could do it. But yeah, thank you. It was so oddly awkward to talk because I don't even know who's listening. So
got Judy and Janine and Diane and Jocelyn and Caroline and Bridget and Gia and Lynn and Ching and myself.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for giving me a chance to talk. It gets me all excited. Now I'm all like ready to. I got to go coach some teenagers from my kayak. We're doing open water this summer, so
I love it.
Not sure I'm making any converts, but at least they're doing something. So.
Yes, you got them out there doing something. That's what they need to do. All right, you guys, have a great day. We'll talk to you next Tuesday. Bye.
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 Thank you so much, Shannon. This is really great.
I'm so glad you're here. See you next time.
You bet.